Okay, and welcome to another episode of Health University, where today I have the pleasure of introducing to you Jen Stevens. And Jen is the author of Fast, Feast, Repeat, and the author of the soon-to-be released December 26th, the 28-day fast start day by day. So welcome, Jen. It's lovely to have you today.
Well, it's great to talk to you today, Susan. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I'm curious, and I can imagine that the listening audience is likewise curious, what had you create the Fast, Feast, Repeat book? What was the impetus for that book?
Well, Fast, Feast, Repeat, I'm going to hold that up right here.
Yes,
I
please.
wrote this I wrote it in 2019. It came out in 2020. And this is my first traditionally published book, but I had written a self-published book called Delay, Don't Deny at the end of 2016. And I was really proud of that book. It was my first thing I ever wrote. And it was short, sweet, and to the point. But as time went on from when I wrote it at the end of 2016, and, I learned more and more information came out about intermittent fasting, more research. I realized that I needed to have a book that was a lot more comprehensive. In fact, the subtitle of this one is The Comprehensive Guide to Delay, Don't Deny Intermittent Fasting. And it was because we knew so many things about intermittent fasting beyond what we knew at the end of 2016. So I wrote Fast, Feast, Repeat and put it out there. And it is quite a thick book. I put literally everything that I could find. As I said, I wrote it in 2019. So it's completely up to date with everything that we knew as of 2019 when it comes to intermittent fasting.
It is very comprehensive and easy to follow for all that it is so comprehensive. So, and then how did it come about that you decided to write this new book? What worked, what didn't work, or in terms of your audience that had you think, we need another support system here?
Yeah. So my new book, 28-day fast start day by day, comes out December 26th. And it's really kind of funny. When Fast, Feast, Repeat came out and did so well, it was a New York Times bestseller. Suddenly, book publishers are like super interested. They're like, all right, let's get you writing some more books. So I got a 2-book deal from my publisher, and we were having a conversation, a planning conversation to figure out what I was going to write next. This was in probably the end of 2020, near the end of it. And I remember, I think my editor said, what's your next intermittent fasting book going to be? And I said, no, I don't want to write any more intermittent fasting books because this one is comprehensive. This has everything you need. I'm not going to get you a new spin on it or tell you a new way to do it or start adding diets to it. And I was determined I was not going to write another intermittent fasting book. I didn't think I needed to. So my first book of the 2-book deal was Cleanish. Have you read Cleanish, Susan?
Have you seen that? I haven't, but I know what I'm going to be purchasing right after this podcast.
Well, I think you would like it. The subtitle of it is Eat Mostly Clean, Live Mainly Clean, and Unlock Your Body's Natural Ability to Self-Clean. So it has a little tie-in to intermittent fasting, that self-cleaning part, right? We know about autophagy and the power of fasting and how it's our body's cellular house cleaning mechanism. Yeah. But it was not a fasting book. And so my audience liked it, but not to the same degree because it wasn't a fasting book. And so I was like, well, it's a great book. People who read it got a lot out of it. It's very comprehensive as well, but about the whole idea of being clean-ish and every little change that you make with what you eat, what you use on your body, personal care products, household cleaning products, everything, every little step you make can make a huge difference in your health. And I know that you believe that as well.
Exponential.
Exactly. And it's really designed. I was a teacher for 28 years, an elementary teacher. And so Cleanish was written very much to guide the reader through, how do you make these changes that seem overwhelming? Like, why do we need to make them? And how do we do it in a way that is doable, one thing at a time, start where you can? So it's very action oriented. Mm-hmm. So I had to write another book. And I was trying to figure out, I don't really want to write another how-to intermittent fasting book because Fast, Feast, Repeat, I wrote it to stand the test of time and be what people needed. And so we were kind of, I have a podcast, Intermittent Fasting Stories, and we were kind of playing with the idea of me writing a book of intermittent fasting stories because everyone loves stories. And I remember I was at a I was at a conference, the same conference I've been to with you. This was not this past one, but the one the year before. And my literary agent just happened to be there. And we were having a conversation. Something just didn't feel right about a book of intermittent fasting stories to me. It was the only thing I could think of, but it just didn't feel right. And so she said, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Keep thinking. So I went back to the drawing board. And then all of a sudden, it came to me. And it had to do with the fact that I run a private community with people, with intermittent fasters. And I realized there was a common problem. And it was a lot of people starting over. Mm-hmm. People would start over and they would keep cycling back through. And, my initial book, Fast, Feast, Repeat, has the 28-day fast start in it. But I don't know, have you ever heard of people doing like rounds of Whole30, for example?
Sure. Absolutely.
Like rounds of it.
It's a very common January theme for that matter.
I don't think that Whole30 was written for the purpose that you would do it in rounds. Like I'm on round 7 of Whole30. That was not their intention with Whole30 at all.
Lifestyle.
And I saw that the same thing, I saw that it was happening with intermittent fasting. People would be like, I'm starting over. I'm doing another 28-day fast start. And I'm like, no, let's stop doing that. Right. So I realized that I needed a way to get people off to the right foot with the mindset. You remember, I was a teacher, the mindset of, I am not doing 28-day fast starts over and over again. This is the beginning of something, and it is like going to be a lifestyle. So the thing about this really thick book, Fast, Feast, Repeat, is that it's super comprehensive, and that is both a strength and a weakness. Because, like, let's say you've got a friend who wants to do intermittent fasting, you hand them this, they're like, yeah, okay, just tell me what to do.
Exactly. They'll go to the fast start and then
right, that's it. But it's only just this much of the chapter. So 28-day fast start day by day. The subtitle of it is The Ultimate Guide for Starting or Restarting Your Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle So It Sticks. Because that, I think, is the key. Intermittent fasting is not something that you need to dabble in and try it here and try it there. And it has to do with the fact that there are, metabolic benefits that come along with it, and you become fat adapted. And it's the kind of thing, it's actually harder to start and stop than it is just to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And, you get stuck in that starting and stopping. You're always in the adaptation period. So when I wrote 28-day fast start day by day, that coming out December 26th, it was to be a companion for Fast, Feast, Repeat. So it walks you through literally every single day. So at the beginning, I explain the basics of fasting, why you want to do it. A lot of people quit. I can talk about that for probably an hour, what makes people quit. Mm-hmm. And, why is it something we want to do for life? And before even starting the fast start, I have people craft their why, because that is really, really important. I lost 80 pounds with intermittent fasting in 2014 to 2015. I'm going through my 10th holiday season as an intermittent faster, by the way.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. But when I started, I'm going to be honest with you, it was a weight loss plan for me. That was it. That was my whole why. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of being obese. I was obese. I didn't want to be obese anymore. So my why was, I got to lose this weight. I'm tired of being on the yo-yo. But if that is someone's only why, they are a lot more likely to quit, because you're just doing a diet. When you understand that it's a lot more powerful than just, I would like to lose some weight, then you're more likely to stick with it. So crafting a powerful why is super important. And I give readers examples of things they might want to pick. The health benefits are huge. I will never live another way based on the fact that it's a healthy way to live. And it's gotten to be more than about weight for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure.
Yep. And then every day I walk them through something, like a little brief lesson, like almost like a blog post. Like you're not having to sit down and read, a 300-page book cover to cover. It's like, all right, it's day one. Let's hear what Jen's going to teach me. Maybe it's the clean fast. Maybe it's a mindset component. Maybe it's having realistic expectations. Every day is a little lesson, and you set the course for the day. You write in it. What am I going to do today? What's my goal going to be? And then at the end, you have a check-in. You check in with your day. And I've also managed to sprinkle in stories from past intermittent fasting stories guests who gave us an update. So you get just like a little bit from someone, like maybe, like for example, Dennis Schock, episode 5 or 6, I can't remember, but you can go back and listen to his episode and then see his update. So it's really like a comprehensive way of getting you in the right mindset for those first 28 days.
Hmm. Well, I can imagine that the listening audience here, who are oftentimes their focus is fertility, and
Yes,
they would possibly be thinking of this of, oh, I'm going to do this so that I can get pregnant. Maybe I'll keep it through my pregnancy, but here again, they're thinking of it as not as a permanent lifestyle change. And I do appreciate that you're mentioning this at the outset, because there is no benefit to stopping it.
right.
It's really then you've got to start all over again. And
Now, the only caveat to that would be during pregnancy and breastfeeding.
of
We
course,
we don't want to do intermittent fasting while we're pregnant, while we're breastfeeding, just because you're growing another human. The breastfeeding part is your fourth trimester, right? So we just don't have research on that,
yeah,
showing that it's a good idea just for
absolutely.
for that part of it. But um, that being said, when you're pregnant, when you're breastfeeding, if you've been doing intermittent fasting for a while prior to that, you've gotten used to listening to your body. So you're not going to be like, I'm having a 4-hour eating window now that I'm pregnant and breastfeeding. No, but you're going to listen to your body. You're going to eat when you need to. And it's really actually kind of funny. We had someone in our community who was not trying to get pregnant. It was an oops kind of a thing that happens a lot in our fasting
Of course,
community.
absolutely. When
But
we improve our health,
she
oops.
said all of a sudden, she didn't know she was pregnant. All of a sudden, fasting got really hard and she was starving. And she's like, something was different. I didn't know what it was. And then I realized I was pregnant. So her body told her, you need more fuel right now. So that was her first indication that she was
All
pregnant.
right. You are now a 24/7 manufacturing plant. So let's
Exactly. You need
add the
more fuel
fuel.
for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But when it comes to fertility, you mentioned that, I had an interview early on in my intermittent fasting stories podcast. It was an OBGYN, Dr. Cecily Ganhart, and she uses fasting with her patients who are trying to get pregnant. Like she literally uses fasting as a tool to increase fertility, especially her PCOS patients, because fasting lowers insulin and then your hormones can work better again.
Mhm. And I heard another reproductive endocrinologist speak on PCOS, where she shared that the inflammatory agents of PCOS are found in the follicular fluid of these women who are trying to ovulate. So, kind of doing this autophagy, clearing up this debris, helps the actual follicle in which the egg will be growing, that environment.
Wow.
And you can literally change the course of this sort of PCOS syndrome, so the genetic predisposition in utero. So I thought that was really fascinating. And yes, as we know, PCO is a metabolic dysregulation, often because there's just really not the break in the feeding and fasting time frame to allow the body to do its right cleanup.
Exactly. And it's also linked to high levels of insulin, hyperinsulinemia, and fasting is the best way to bring down your insulin levels. I've got a niece who was just diagnosed with PCOS and she's newly married and planning to start a family eventually. So she was like, Aunt Jen, what do I do? I'm like, you got to start fasting.
Absolutely.
And I pointed her in the direction of some resources, including the interview I did with Dr. Cecily Ganhart, just because for an OBGYN to say we are going to incorporate fasting to help you conceive, that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, she's lucky to have you as an aunt. So is there anything else in the sort of sharing of the fast start? Am I getting that right? Excuse me.
Yeah, 28-day fast start
Yes,
day by day.
yes. That you want the public to know, because we're rolling into the new year. This is when
Yep.
people start their New Year's resolution. And are there tips and tricks that you might want to suggest to the listening audience, so that when they begin, because of course I can imagine everyone's going to say, I'll begin after the holidays.
Yeah.
It would be lovely if people could begin before the holidays, but the book won't be out until then. They can get the fast piece repeat.
I have a friend who started on Christmas Day, though. She started fast. Her journey began on Christmas Day. She's like, no better time than today. But yeah, I've actually planned out with the new book. It comes out December 26th, like we know, and people are still in that holiday mindset. Like, I'll start after the new year. So I've actually figured out, I've got a community. If you go to jenstevens.com/community, and Jen is GIN, Stevens with a PH. JenStevens.com/community.
That one more time because you're a fast talker as well.
I'm sorry, Jen.
Jen Stevens, and the information will be in the link below, but JenStevens.com/community.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And Jen is like gin and tonic. Stevens is with the PH. But if you go to that site, it's a paid community. It's not expensive. It's like $9.99 a month. It's just that I used to have Facebook groups. We pivoted. $9.99 a month keeps it super friendly. Mm-hmm. No one comes in and acts ugly. Paid community. Yes. I've just learned that. Everybody's super helpful and supportive. But I backtracked it. I was like, all right, wouldn't it be nice if we had like a group 28-day fast start? And we could end on January 31st, the first month of the year. So I backed it up. January 4th is when we're going to start kind of a group 28-day fast start for people that are new.
You were going to say that when I asked the question, because, really, I think sometimes any lifestyle change, I think the biggest hurdle can be the going it alone. So getting into that community to get that support and encouragement and tips would be very
Exactly. And I'm there, and I reply to every single post. I'm there. People are like surprised at how active I am in the community, but I absolutely love it. So the book comes out December 26th, and then you've got that period of time from the 26th until January 4th to read that first little part. We have, the information on the clean fast, crafting your why, learning about the health benefits. And then day 0, the day before you're getting ready to start, you figure out, what plan. There's several different approaches you can take. You take a little quiz and figure it out. And then you commit. You write yourself a letter. You're just like, you're really committing to the fast start. Yeah. And then there on January 4th, we're all, bam, that's day 1 of our 28-day fast start. And then we work our way through it. And I even envision, that 1 year later, January 4th of 2025.
I know, right?
We're going to be celebrating everybody's fast-iversary. That's what we call it in the community. When you've made it for a year, it's your fast-iversary. So I'm really excited to see a new cohort get started January 4th, finish up on January 31st. Part of it, after you finish the fast start, I want people to commit to the next year, and you're already 1/12 of the way through. Right. You only have 11 more months to go. Right. So you commit to the next year, and you're not going to stop unless you get pregnant.
Right.
You'll just pause. You'll just pause for a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So you mentioned there are different programs, these different windows of fasting that people can choose. Would you like to explain a little bit more about that?
Yes. And it has to do with, each person as an individual. And a lot of times people will say, what's the best approach? What should I do? What's the best intermittent fasting and feasting window approach to do? And I said, I can't tell you that. We're all very, very different when it comes to that. So I have a quiz in the book where you kind of answer a few questions, and that kind of directs you whether you're going to be slow and steady and really ease your way in, or are you going to rip the Band-Aid off, or are you going to be in the middle? Mm-hmm. And so every week you have chosen one of those to start with, and it tells you exactly this is how long you're going to fast, and this is how long your eating window is going to be for week 1. Mm-hmm. Then at the end of the week, you check in and you say, okay, this was just right. Or this was a little too hard. I need to ease back. Or, oh, this was a little too easy. I can move it up a little bit. So you're constantly assessing where you are with it. We're not trying to, I'm going to do intermittent fasting, so I'm going to fast for 40 days and 40 nights straight. No, we're easing in. Maybe you're beginning with a 16.8, and that feels good. And by the end, you'll be at a 19.5. But it's just very, very personalized, and you get to kind of check in with yourself and see how it's going.
Great. And then you mentioned that, we're all unique, that, everyone has her own or his own time frame. Do you otherwise have general recommendations about, we hear with their circadian flow, eat during the day, the hours of light. Now that doesn't work for somebody who's on a night shift necessarily.
Right.
But do you have any thoughts about that? Because people are getting all kinds of little threads of information from Dr. Google.
Well, there's so much, literally you could find so much information that you don't know where to start. And my philosophy is this, whether it comes to really almost anything, the best intermittent fasting approach for you is the one that feels like a lifestyle that you're going to stick to. Let's imagine, now look, we know about research that you could find research that says really literally anything you want. The opposite, or you could find so much contradictory information out there. But let's imagine that there was a definitive study that said, well, there isn't, but let's imagine there was. This is the best time for every single human body to have their eating window. Well, if that doesn't suit you and you can't make that into a lifestyle, then you're going to not be doing it. So you can use theory against you by trying to live up to something that doesn't fit your lifestyle. So like for me, I do best when I have, we're recording this, it's almost 3:30. I haven't eaten yet. When we're done, I'm going to go open my eating window. I like to wait till after I work for the day to open my window. And I usually have about a 5-hour eating window. Today, it'll probably be a little shorter because I'm waiting a little later to open than usual. But if someone told me the best time is you must start eating at 8 a.m. and have a 5-hour window and then stop, I wouldn't be able to do that. That wouldn't work for me. If I eat early in the day, I legitimately get really, really hungry again before bed, and then I don't sleep well that night. So that wouldn't work for me.
Circadian clock is what's dictating for you.
Yes. And I don't think that there is such thing as a universal circadian rhythm for all people. Like my husband and I have very different rhythms. I wake up, like the time just changed, and I'm not waking up. I'm happy if I can sleep till 5 or 5:30 because my eyes just bloop, pop open because I'm a morning person. But at night, if I can stay awake till 9 p.m., I'm feeling fortunate. But my body naturally does it. If someone came out with a study that said, hey, it's better to sleep till 7 a.m. and stay awake till 11 p.m., well, I would have to really force my body, and that would not be best for me.
You would be singling yourself out of that, and which is, psychologically a challenge, right?
And really is. All that to say, I'm a big fan of your body will tell you what feels good, and you can trust that.
And then what about the actual foods, the nutrition itself? Do you have any tidbits that you'd like to offer, or go get the book?
No, I do. And one thing that might be surprising is that when you're doing the 28-day fast start, I want you to keep eating the way you were eating before you started, whatever that was. So, and it goes both ways. So let's imagine someone was eating the standard American diet before they started intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. That's how I was eating before I started intermittent fasting. It's not how I eat now. I've changed naturally. But let's imagine that's how they're eating. If you say, I'm going to do intermittent fasting and I'm going to completely change the way I'm eating, I'm going to do everything, and I'm also going to run a marathon. I mean, you know how people are. They want to do everything.
Especially on January 1st.
Right. You're much more likely to crash and burn.
Gotcha.
So I want you to change one thing. First, you're just going to do the fasting. You're not going to change what you're eating and go to your kitchen and throw everything away. Now, you can have an eye for food quality. That there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't want you to try to do so much that you crash and burn and then you quit. We've all done that, trying to make too many changes at once. Now, on the flip side of that, let's imagine you've been eating keto for 5 years. Okay, someone's been eating or vegan for 5 years, and they're like, I'm really sick of this. I'm going to start intermittent fasting, and I'm going to add everything back at the same time. Don't do that either, right? So when I say however you have been eating before starting, keep that going-ish, right, for the first 28 days. Mm-hmm. And it's never wrong to eat higher quality foods. That's never a bad idea. But you want to make it feel natural and not like you're trying to force it. But, I think we all agree, the more research that's coming out about ultra-processed foods, and I mean, even though the health and wellness community rarely agrees on, fine details, I think there's really nobody except that crazy Twinkie diet professor. I don't know what happened to him, but other than that,
he probably didn't live, or he deserved.
Anybody out there in any health and wellness world is saying, other than maybe big food, nobody else is saying that ultra-processed foods are a good, healthy addition. But again, I'm clean-ish, so I'm not, aiming for food perfection, but I know what's going to nourish my body well.
And what about hydration? Does the fast oh my goodness, I keep mixing it up. Does the 28-day fasting speak to hydration and how much water one should consume and when?
Actually, no. And here's why. Here's one thing about fasting. And, we've gotten the idea that you need to drink a certain amount of water
Right.
all throughout the day. And when you're fasting, you actually have different hydration needs. And you can actually overhydrate in a fasted state and kind of like wash out, if you will, your electrolytes. And so if you have been drinking like gallons and gallons of water before, I mean, we need more water when we're digesting. We do. We need water for that digestive process. But when you're fasting, your body doesn't need the same quantity perhaps of water, and it can actually be counterproductive. So I don't want anyone to force water. Look, I've got my water right here. I drink when I'm thirsty, but I don't overdo it. So if you're overdoing water while you're fasting, it could actually cause more headaches and electrolyte imbalances, and we don't want to do that. So
that's actually a really great tip, because of course we do all hear the drink 1/2 your body weight in pounds in fluid ounces,
right,
your waking time. So it is
again. I'm a believer that we don't, like, some days I'm thirstier than others. If it's summertime and I've been outside and I'm running around doing a lot outside, I'm going to need more fluid that day. But I have completely dropped all like recommendations of what I have to do. If I'm thirsty, there's that saying that if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. I don't think our bodies are like that. I think our bodies would let us be in a dangerous state and then tell us we got a problem. I think our bodies are pretty savvy.
Although there is, I mean, and I don't want to, debate it, but there is that whole concept of, adapting, right? So our thirst threshold might adapt if we are, kind of just not getting as much water as we otherwise might, and when we start drinking water, that thirst threshold, can be a little higher. We start to feel thirsty.
That's a great point. Yeah. We definitely want to drink. I don't want people to fast dry. Definitely not.
Right.
But we need to have that balance. You don't want to overdo it. It's trying to figure that out.
And then what about exercise during the fast, during an intermittent fasting preparation or beginning?
Is there during the fast start, during those first 28 days? That is a great question. Because, I'm a big believer, once you're fat adapted and you're metabolically flexible, which will happen throughout the fast start, hopefully. It takes some bodies a little bit longer if they're more metabolically unhealthy. But let's say an average of 28 days. Once you're metabolically flexible, you'll be amazed at what your body can do in the fasted state. In my community, we have people, they'll be new and they'll talk about they're like, I'm afraid to work out. I don't know what to do. And we encourage people to take it easy for the first 28 days, because you might not have the fuel yet to do an extreme workout, like maybe CrossFit, not during the first 28 days, instead do some walking, be a little more gentle. But then these same people, once they're fat adapted, they come back and they are like, I am shocked that my strength is just as high as it was before. My endurance is just as good. I'm actually running faster. I'm getting personal best times. I'm lifting more. And so they were expecting they'd be weak and, lose all their progress, but it's the opposite. Once your body is adapted, we can do all of that in the fasted state that we used to do before. Maybe not at first, but once you're adapted.
Yeah, that's good to know. And then one more question has to do with, sleep cycle. Yeah. You mentioned that you, oh, sorry for that little ding ding, that you tend to be a bit in bed by 9. But are there recommendations here again when one is beginning and trying to adapt as to get more sleep? Don't worry about it. Ish.
Well, again, this is going to be listened to your body. Obviously, we all want to get sufficient sleep because sleep is also a big part of the body's repair. We have to have the sleep for our brains. It's essential. And you cannot be healthy in general if you are not sleeping well. One thing about the adjustment period is you might have slightly worse sleep at first. Again, as your body is figuring this out, you might start suddenly, when we're becoming fat adapted, we might start dipping into ketosis during our daily fast. And if your brain is not used to ketones, it can keep you awake at night at first. But eventually, when you adapt to fasting, you'll probably sleep better than before. I'm sleeping wonderfully now. Although menopause did a little number on my sleeping. Thank goodness for hormone replacement therapy, because now I'm sleeping like sleeping like a 20-year-old again.
Beautiful. That is
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, but before we wrap up, are there any points or messages that you want to convey that we haven't raised as of yet?
Well, I think both of us can speak to this. And there's been a recent flood of information out there saying that women have to be super cautious about fasting and that they can't fast or that they shouldn't fast certain times of the month. You can only fast during this phase or that phase. And I would just like to speak to that, and that
Please.
I don't think that is the case at all. And I've heard actual OBGYN doctors, and you're a fertility expert. I've heard all sorts of fertility specialists like you and OBGYNs and people in the space that really understand. And there is not evidence that women can't fast. However, here's what we do know. Women should not over restrict.
Right.
That's never good. That's the whole idea that fasting equals over restriction is I think where the disconnect happens.
I agree. I think that is the miscommunication, is that this presumption that if someone is fasting, she is not getting her nutrients, and that's not true. Yeah.
We don't want you to do that. The book is not called Fast, Eat a Little Diet Meal, Repeat. It's Fast, Repeat. We want to nourish our body well. And so we don't find people in our fasting community who are fasting and fasting and fasting, and then they lose their periods. No, because we're not, your body lets you know if you're overdoing something. Now, people might start fasting and have like a wonky cycle because their body's like, what's happening? But then they're, bam. Usually people are even like more regular than before, especially if they had PCOS.
Exactly. Yes. And, and the same can be said for any change to a woman's environment. I mean, she could take a flight and have a change to her cycle. She could sync up with women at another office and have a change to her cycle, right? With the pheromones. So the idea that it is caused by fasting is a fallacy. I agree. And I agree that fasting does not mean restriction, that we absolutely need to have our nutrients.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. Of course, I could chat with you all day long, and I cannot wait to get the book. I actually ordered it already.
Thank you.
So I recommend everybody out there to get pre-order as well, so that you can get the book, be prepared, and get started in Jin's community on January 4th and get all this.
I'm super excited.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jin.